Gamers are often marginalized by a lot of people, by non-gamers specifically, by people who know nothing about the industry. They never played games, and even if they did, they probably only played mobile games, or at best they played games when they were very young, when the industry only appeared and they don't know what is going on in the industry nowadays. So this negligence towards gamers and games by society comes from lacking of experience with what games provide. So in this video I will prove that games are not just entertainment, but also a form of art. Whether it is for you to have reasons and arguments with uninformed people, or if you are not a gamer yourself and want to know more about what gaming is. So art. What is art is a good question in and of itself. So to determine what art is in the first place, let's look at industries that are considered to be art. Nobody will question the statement that music is art, or that visual creations like paintings and cinematography are also art. Or nobody will question that literature and writing is art. Well, fun fact. Games are all of that, plus the ability to control the protagonists, the story, the plot, and even to interact with objects and characters. Let's look at an example. Two exact pieces of media with the same plot. The Last of Us Part 1, the game, and The Last of Us Season 1 Netflix series that almost perfectly copies the plot of the game. Now, in the Netflix show we are only the observers, but in the game we have the control over the characters. In the game, when Joel carries Sarah, it is the player who carries Sarah, and the player must get Sarah to safety, because the characters won't move on their own. We even get to play as Sarah beforehand, which establishes a strong connection with the character and makes us care about her. And spoiler warning for the game and for the show. When Sarah dies, it is much more painful and much more personal in the game than in the show, because of the personal involvement of the player. What I'm trying to say is that games are way better at establishing emotional connections with characters, and because of this the consumer has much more empathy towards them. Before games existed, movies were the ultimate media that gathered all forms of art into one piece of media, like acting, music, numerous visual arts, storytelling and writing. Games are taking it a step further, placing the consumer of art if not as the main character of the art piece, but at least alongside them. Well, as I said earlier, what is considered to be art is a pretty debatable question. Nowadays it is more about the meaning of the art piece, about the essence. Unlike what was considered to be art in the past. In the past it was more about the technique. For example, the perspective in painting is a technique. But games brought to world a new form of art. I'm absolutely sure that game design is art. It is both about technique and about the meaning and essence. Let's first talk about essence, how game design brings senses. Before any game is getting developed, first the game designer or game designers think about the vision of the game. What is the purpose of the game? How the player will spend time in the game? What the player will do? What feeling the game must provide? For example, the game Red Dead Redemption 2 and the game The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Even though both games are open-world action games, the games are absolutely different. The philosophy of Skyrim is to be whoever you want to be and do whatever you want to do. When Rockstar in Red Dead Redemption 2 is creating a very strict game that gives you very concentrated and specific experience. For those who want to know more about Rockstar game design, I have made a separate video on this topic. And there is a similar video about Bethesda game formula. Also, I've made a video about From Software formula. So if you are interested, subscribe to your favorite croissant. I have a lot of interesting videos already. And leave a like to this video. Now let's move on. Now that was about the vision and philosophy. But there's also the beauty of technique. It includes game mechanics. What can the player control, do, affect, and in general technical performance of the game. And not only that, but the technical aspect of the game and the philosophical aspect must work together to provide a solid experience to the gamer. For example, a philosophical aspect. If you are creating a horror game, the technical aspect should support that. The gamer shouldn't have a lot of means to fight back. The more effective the gamer can fight back, the less scared the gamer will be. And the opposite is true. The more helpless the gamer is, the more scary the game will be. Do you see how the philosophical aspect and the technical aspect must work together to create the right experience? That's how game designers create different experiences for gamers. And that's why a vision of the game designer is important. Game designer, in this sense, is the artist. He uses both the technical aspect and the philosophical aspect of creation to design a game. So, not only games are the collection of media that includes in itself a lot of art forms from other industries, but games brought a new form of art to this world, known as game design. Some may say, well, you can't say that games are art because not all games are good. Yes, as well as not all the paintings, all the movies, all the songs, all the sculptures, etc., etc. Just because there are some poor quality games doesn't mean that games are not art. Just as the presence of some bad painting or bad novels doesn't mean that those forms of art are not art. Now, a lot of people neglect games as a form of art because of infantilization of games, meaning that the common perception is that games are for kids. Again, it comes from lack of understanding what games are. Essentially, games are like movies. Games are everything. There are so many genres of games that everyone can find something to their taste. There are games that are focused more on gameplay, like for example there are sports games like FIFA or online shooters like Battlefield. There are also games that combine gameplay and narrative, games like Uncharted or Devil May Cry. There are games that combine narrative, gameplay and choice making, like for example Baldur's Gate or Mass Effect. Or even if you don't like playing games because of gameplay, there are genres like narrative adventure, games like Life is Strange and Walking Dead. And if you want more choice making with little to no gameplay, there's Detroit Become Human. So, if you tried games and didn't like it, try again. Try a different genre. To not like games, it is like to not like movies or TV shows. It is impossible. Everyone can find something to their taste. The common perception of non-gamers about gamers is that gamers are just a bunch of kids that are upset by the outcome of a Fortnite match. People often infantilize games and say that games are for kids. And yes, some are. But just as with other media, games have age restrictions. Now, the same people that say that games are for kids probably say stuff like anime is for kids, because it looks like cartoons and cartoons are for kids. Well, go watch Elfen Lied. I watched it as a kid and I got traumatized, because I wasn't supposed to watch it as a kid. Because it's not made for kids. The same with games. Sometimes it is not made for kids because of stuff like gore. In other cases, for example, kids might not be able to appreciate the plot of the game. For example, the plot about grief in Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Or a philosophical thought about perspectives on freedom in Stalker 2. So, even though I do think that age ratings of games and movies are often a bit dramatic, they are there for a reason. And if it says that it is not for kids, it is probably not for kids. So, to summarize it all, are games for kids? Some are family friendly, some are made for large demographics of people, some are more niche or target a specific audience. Again, games are a form of media and it is everything and for everyone. And again, I want to make a comparison with anime. Because anime also often gets neglected because it looks like cartoons, thus it is for kids, thus it cannot be art. When in reality anime is the same form of media as movies, just instead of live action it uses animation to depict characters, actions and scenes. Just as some movies are for kids, like Harry Potter or Chronicles of Narnia, so are some anime and games. But it doesn't mean that those forms of media are for kids. And it doesn't mean that they can't be art. And the last one. I already said that games include in itself a lot of other forms of art. But it is not just that. It does not just include those forms of art. Games produce them. It is not just copy-paste. For example, the most obvious thing is that games produce music. There is a lot of music written specifically for games, with game characters in mind, to fit the narrative of the game and the style of the game. And there's a lot of excellent game music. So again, it is not just including other industries, it is creating art. Games produce art. So how can an industry that produces art not be art itself? Make it make sense. And it is not just only music. You can think of 3D design as a continuation of sculpting. environmental design, clothing and style of characters. There's an entire fashion industry inside the gaming industry. Motion capture and acting. Games casually create art, and they aren't art themselves? No, it just sounds silly at this point. Now, to finalize it all, I want to address gamers. Games are art. The gaming industry is big and important. So if you're a gamer, don't allow others to neglect your hobby. Because this video as an idea appeared when I was watching different gaming shows. Shows like Summer Game Fest, Game Awards, etc, etc. Seeing how the classic celebrities get a special treatment on those shows, while the actual game developers receive statements like, "Wrap it up." And it is not only the shows themselves. The audiences also are often very pleased to see the classic celebrities present at those shows and in games. It shows that the gaming industry seeks validation. And I want to say that we shouldn't. Games and gaming is great. Of course, I don't want to say that the gaming industry should isolate itself from the classic celebrities. No, I think for example Keanu Reeves is a perfect Johnny Silverhand. And everyone should be welcomed to play games and develop games. I just want to say that we shouldn't seek validation from outside. We are already great. Now, thank you for watching. If you like this video, you can show it by clicking the like button. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I have a lot of interesting videos already. And ring the notification bell. Hope to see you in my other videos. See you there.